Good morning and hello, and thank you for joining me today. If your life's feeling a pretty grey, if maybe you're feeling a bit lonely or things like that, then have you ever considered that maybe writing fiction can actually help with those things? Hi there, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Lisa Oliver. If you want to find out more about what I write and what I do, then you can check out my links in my description below. But for the crux of this video, all you need to know is about 9.5, almost 10 years ago, I started writing fiction, and I can honestly say that it changed my life. I self-published my work, and I've been able to live comfortably on what I earn simply by writing my books. But today we're not talking so much about the money side of things. What I wanted to talk about was the various ways that writing fiction can help you overcome feelings of loneliness. I'm going to say depression, while I recognize that depression is a very real illness. But the thing is that writing can seriously help you, if for nothing else, for the escapism that it provides from our real life. Now, if you've been following my channel at all, then you know that I live alone. I suffer from PTSD. I have wonderful adult children who all live in fairly close area. And like yesterday, they just popped in. I was going to make a video yesterday, but then my daughter and my daughter-in-law and some of my grandkids turned up, and they just popped in, and it was really awesome. But 99.9% of the time, I spend my time alone. And see this? I actually don't mind it at all, because I'm currently writing actually 3. I was going to say 2, but I actually am writing 3 books at the moment. That keeps my brain active and engaged. Now, I did write myself some notes, and the first thing I wrote was, it engages your mind. For many older people, but then I did notice let me rephrase that. I was going to make this video for older people, people who have maybe gone into forced retirement, people who now find themselves living alone for whatever reason, and people who perhaps might struggle to be out there, socially, like me. But then I realized it was actually being unfair, because there's a lot of younger people who also feel socially isolated, not so much because of the thing we do not mention, but also just because the world is changing so much. And for many of us, it's really, really difficult to fit in. And one of the awesome things about writing fiction is that it takes your mind out of the real world. When you're planning, plotting, or if you're like me and you're just a pantser, you're sitting down and writing, for that period of time that you're writing, you are engaged in something that is outside of all this. It's outside of the political problems, the cost of living crisis, and all that sort of thing. And so if you like, you consider it's a way of giving your brain a holiday. When you're engaging in something that is fictional, then it's all coming from in here. And your mind is actually working on something that is productive and positive through the words you put on the page. So engaging your mind is one way that writing fiction can truly help you. Another thing, which might seem like a small point to some people, but is actually a big deal to others, myself included, is that when you write fiction stories, you are controlling the outcome. There are many of us who live who live with anxiety, who live with low-grade fears. I sincerely hope, if you're not in a safe situation, could you please reach out so that you can be in a safe situation. But for many of us, those feelings come from, we may be in a safe space, but we still feel edgy. We still feel lonely. We still feel isolated. And when you have control over the worlds that you're creating, that brings a huge sense of empowerment. For example, when I first started writing my first fiction book, The Reluctant Wolf, it was published back in 2014, and it still sells about 20 copies a month regularly, which is really sweet. When I first started writing it, I was married. My children had left home, but I was still married, and my husband and I were growing apart. There was nothing acrimonious about it. It wasn't bad at all. But I was feeling increasingly lonely. And I was also recognizing, that my husband and I had just fallen out of love. It happens. But I really I believed I deserved more. So I sat down and I wrote that on the page. I wrote love stories where I wrote the Fated Mates process. So, of course, people had to make their relationships work. And I was living with a husband who didn't engage with me, where our changes weren't possible. As I say, he was not a bad man. We just grew apart. And that happens. But on my pages, my characters had to make their relationships work, no matter how diverse they were, what different lifestyles they came from, or anything else. My characters had to make things work, and I controlled that outcome. And there's something really empowering in doing that, in actually creating situations on the page that work as though you wish they would in real life. And I don't think it's any I can't think of the word. I'm just having one of those days. But it's no coincidence that my marriage only lasted a year after I finished writing, or after I started writing, because I think what happened was, as I controlled the outcomes in my stories and I brought them happy ever after, I became aware of how unhappy ever after my own life was, and my husband and I agreed to part, which was fine. And as I say, that was about 9 years ago. So yeah, and so my writing, my ability to control that outcome. And if you're somebody who deals with anxiety or PTSD like I do, having that control over your characters, bringing their resolutions to a thing, those are so empowering when you can create that on the page. And I truly believe that it gives you more confidence in your day-to-day life when you can control the outcome on your written page. Now, obviously, we can't control the real world in that way, but the confidence that you gain from crafting your stories goes a long way to helping deal with what happens in the outside world. Another reason that can be a really good idea to get into the habit of writing fiction and to start writing your books is that it gives you a purpose. For many of us, I know that the whole thing that's not allowed to be discussed on YouTube has caused so much disconnection and isolation from people. And it leaves a lot of us without a purpose in a day. But if especially if you're a planner well, actually, it doesn't make any difference if you're a planner or a plotter or a pantser. Once you start writing, when you get up in the morning, you're sort of thinking to yourself, oh, what would I do today? And you've got hours stretching forward with possibly nothing to do at all. But if you're writing a book, I know for myself, I woke up this morning, I was thinking about Fenrir, which is one of my characters that I'm writing. And I was thinking, oh God, I've put him in this situation where he's having a confrontation with 4 other wolf shifters. And I mean, he's the god of wolf shifters, but he's also in the middle of a dog park in Las Vegas. So it's not like he can just wolf out and scare the crap out of these little puppies and get on with it. Plus which he has to get back in time for lunch because he promised he'd take his mate, Dorian. He'd promised he'd take him lunch. Saying this like this out of context, you're probably thinking, is this woman completely doolally? No, this is what's going on in my story. And when I woke up this morning, I thought, oh yeah, I've got dishes to do, and I wonder if that package will arrive from Amazon. And, oh, what am I going to do with FENRA? You know, it's given another added depth to my day. It's given me something to do. I have things to do all the time. And having that and living that with a lot more purpose gives me a lot more confidence to deal with other stuff that might crop up in my real world. The only thing is sometimes I think to myself, oh, you know, when somebody says, oh, well, will you come out or will you do this? And I'm thinking, but I've got to get Fenra out of that dog park. You know, it's like, I'm not sure that it's socially acceptable to say, well, excuse me, I'd rather talk to my characters. But I've actually got a T-shirt with that written on because for me, it's very true. So doing that, having characters and going through the process of writing a fiction book adds another dimension to your day, one that is purposeful, one that does empower you because you control the outcome. And it just adds more color to your world. Now, excuse me, I just have to check and see the purpose. The other two aspects that why I believe writing fiction is so good for you, and especially good for your mental health, is that it noisy thing. It feeds the mind, okay? Because you are thinking, it's very easy, especially when the world is so dire. It is really easy to get caught up in the spiral of, oh my God, you know, the cost of living is shocking. The rates of unemployment are rising. People are becoming more violent. Crime seems to be on the increase. All those things. At the moment, New Zealand is going through an election cycle. So you can just imagine every time you turn the TV on, there's more bad crap happening. And it is really easy to dwell on that. And when you dwell on that and you fixate on that, it actually gets worse. Now, the strange thing is it's your perception of it that gets worse. And it becomes a downward spiral. And that is dangerous. By writing fiction, I'm not suggesting that that's just a smooth brush that makes the world a happier place. But what it does is it diverts your mind from what's going on outside. And I think that is useful. And I don't know why my phone keeps beeping. But I do believe that it helps you to stop dwelling on the negative. What happens in this election cycle, for example, I can't control that outcome. I have a pretty fair idea who's going to win our election. It doesn't fill me with any feelings of positivity and joy because the bottom line is it doesn't matter who gets in. Our situations are all still going to be the same. The cost of living is still going to be high. The cost of petrol is still going to keep going up. It's still going to, you know, the cost of rents and everything else is still going to go up. I could focus on those things and I would drive myself nuts. But no, I'm going to spend today trying to work out how Fenra's going to handle his situation with the full wolf shifters who have herded him to a dog park. I actually prefer my day that way. And that is what I mean. When you engage and start and create a fictional world, it can be so empowering, and you control it. You control the outcome, you control what happens, and it gives you something else to think about. It breaks those mind cycles of how dire everything is. The fact of the matter is, what goes on out in the world there is still going to be the same. That's not going to change. I don't believe I'm not silly enough to think any one of us could write one book that's going to change everything. I don't think that at all. But I do think that if you write a fictional book that you would love to read, that brings you purpose and pleasure, empowers you, encourages you, and gives you something else to think about, then your days and the way you navigate your way through the world as it is now, it's just so much easier. It's so much more empowering. It's so much more fun. And so next time, like, you know, if you have to go to one of those dinners or something and you've got boring relatives, I mean, I don't have boring relatives because I am the matriarch of my family. I'm the oldest one. But I can sit there and there's all my kids and everything going on, and I love to see them. But half the time that they're there, I'm sort of thinking, oh, yeah, well, I could do this and I could do that in my story. It gives us something else to think about. And you know what? In the world the way it is, I honestly see that as a positive thing. So there are lots of videos on my channel about how to start writing, how to continue writing, how to market once you have writing. I am going to be doing a new marketing video shortly about the idea of building a community, because that is something else that comes once you've self-published your book. You start to garner readers. Those readers become friends. And suddenly your social circle's not looking quite so bleak either. So anyway, if this helped you at all, I do hope it does. But if it's helped you at all, please let me know by hitting the like and subscribe button. If you've got questions, or you even want to say how wrong I am, put it in the comments below. Because if you've got a situation that you think I haven't covered, then I want to hear about it, sweetie, because I want to give you a hand. So as I say, how about you get those writing utensils out? What would you be using? Sorry. How about you open your Word file, Pages file, Google Docs, or even open a text file on your phone? Because whatever you're watching this on, you can write on. Why don't you create a world of your own, a world where you control the outcome, and a world that is interesting and vibrant and is totally relatable to you? Please hug the ones you love, my friends. Keep writing, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.